Today's lesson is factor by grouping. So this is kind of a brand new topic. Tomorrow's lesson is fairly similar, and I'll be back tomorrow to teach this one in person. So you need to try to do your best to understand this so that tomorrow makes sense. I've heard a lot of complaints recently. I know I've been gone a lot. A lot of it's been doctor's appointments. A lot of it's been Stuco, so lots of different reasons. But either way, I'm making videos so that you can still be able to understand the lessons. So I know it's not the easiest way to learn, but if you're actually trying to understand what I'm saying and not just copying down the notes, then you should be able to learn still. So make sure that you're not just writing what I'm writing. If it helps, maybe just listen for a minute and then copy down. But you need to actually be thinking and processing what I'm saying as I go over the problems. So these steps you should have written down on the last slide. If not, pause it and get them all down. I'm not really going to go through them because a lot of it won't make sense until we actually start. This is mostly just for you to look back after the lesson in case you forgot what to do. So let's go ahead and start number 1. I started it already and then my video stopped, so that's why you'll see writing. So go ahead and write it down. First step, you're going to draw a line down the middle, which I've already done, and then you have to find the greatest common factor. So we're going to find the greatest common factor of the left side and then factor it out. This is something we did in lesson 2. You may not be good at it still, so try to understand it as I go. So the highest number that goes into 6 and 3 is 3, and then we have to find the highest amount of x's in both. So this one, x to the third, means there are 3 x's being multiplied. X squared means there are 2. So we're looking for how many are there in common. So there's a common one, there's a common one. So if there are 2 in common, that means x squared is the common factor. So this actually should be 3x squared, and then a parenthesis. So then we're going to factor that out, which means divide. So we're going to divide each term by 3x squared. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. X cubed divided by x squared. Hopefully you remember from last chapter you subtract the exponents here. So 3 minus 2, x to the first. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then x squared over x squared cancels out. Same thing on the right side. So what number goes into both -4 and -2? So if they both have a negative, that's in common. It needs to come out. And then the highest number that goes into both is a 2. So that comes out. The x's, this one has an x, but this one does not. So if one doesn't have it, it's not in common. So we can't take any x's out. So it's just a -2. Divide each one by that. So -4 divided by -2 is +2. X over nothing there stays x. -2 divided by -2 is +1. So then at this point we're almost finished. We just have to write the answer. This set of parentheses should match exactly that set. If it does not, you've done something wrong. So double check that before you write your final answer. So your answer, you write this parenthesis that matches. So 2x plus 1, you only write it once. The other set of your answer comes from this and this. They go into a set of parentheses together. So this is our final answer. So that doesn't seem like an answer. It's kind of weird. But all this means is that if you multiply these two things together, this would be the answer. So we were dividing. We found 2 things that multiplied to equal this. So if you want to double check, you can distribute this 3 through, and it should get back to this original problem. So I know that first one probably was confusing. That's why we're going to do a lot of these. So as we go, hopefully it starts getting a little bit easier. So number 2, first thing, we're going to draw a line down the middle. Find the greatest common factor on the left. So what number goes into 4 and 8? 2 does, but that's not the greatest. So 4 does also. That's the biggest one that goes into 4 and 8. And then we have to check the variables. So this one's got 3 n's. This one has 2. So how many, if I circled them, would match? We've got a match here. We've got a match there. So n squared comes out. And then you divide each term by 4n squared. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. Here you subtract, so 3 minus 2 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And the ends here cancel out. Now we do the same thing on the right side. So again, if you have a negative end common, that needs to come out. And then we're looking for the highest number that goes into both 5 and 10. So 1 goes into both, 2 doesn't, 3 doesn't, 4 doesn't, 5 does, and that's the biggest one. Then we're going to divide each one by negative 5. I don't have an n here because that has an n, this does not. So if it doesn't have one, it's not in common. So I can't write it out front. So divide by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. N is still there. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. Make sure you're careful on your signs. So again, these should match. They do, even though I put a 1 here. This technically has a 1. So they may not look exactly the same if you've got a 1 in one set and not in the other. So I'm going to put 1n plus 2. So that one that matches is 1 parenthesis. The other one is this. So 4n squared and this, minus 5. The order that you write these two sets of parentheses does not matter. I could have put this first and then that one, as long as you have both sets. Let's try another one. Number 3. So again, first thing, draw a line down the middle. Find the greatest common factor on the left. So we're looking for a number that goes into 2 and 8. So 1 goes into both, but it's not the greatest because 2 goes into both. And then the x's, I'm going to start not showing this step. So if this part is confusing, you might want to go back to number 1 and 2. So I've got 3 x's here and 2 there. So the number that I would be able to circle, there would be 2 matches. So x squared. So I'm going to divide each one by 2x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X to the third divided by x squared is x to the first. 8 divided by 2 is 4. X squareds cancel out. You might be noticing that's pretty common. Second side, so this technically is a 1. So what number goes into both 1 and 4? The only thing that goes into both is 1, and sometimes that happens. Basically, that means there's not a common factor other than 1. And then there are no x's in common. This has 1, this does not. So it's just a 1 out front. Divide by 1, so you'll get x plus 4. So again, both match, even though I've got a 1 here and a 1 there. It's the same exact thing. So one set of parentheses is x plus 4. The other set are these two terms that I took out. So 2x squared plus 1. Final answer. Number 4. Draw a line down the middle. Greatest common factor on the left, so 9 and 12. Biggest number that goes into both is 3. And then the x's, in common, there are 3 here and 2 there. So I could take 2 out of both. There are 2 in common. Divide each one by 3x squared. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, so that's x to the first. Negative 12 over 3 is negative 4. And then again, those x's cancel out. On the right side, 3 and negative 4. The only number in common is 1. Again, there are no x's in common because this doesn't have 1. So I'm going to divide each one by 1. So it just stays the same, 3x minus 4. These match. So I'm going to write that in one set of parentheses, and the other one, 3x squared plus 1. Got a couple more. Hopefully by this time you're starting to get the hang of it. If not, really focus on these last two and try to understand it. So draw a line down the middle. Greatest common factor in 10 and 25. So 5 is in common. It is the greatest. So that's part of my greatest common factor. And then the x's. Let me show it again just in case you're still confused on that part. X cubed and x squared. This is what we did in lesson 2. We listed them all out, circled the matches. So that's what I'm talking about when I say greatest common factor. I can take 2 x's out of both of them because they match. So since I can take 2 out, it's x squared. I'm going to divide each one by 5x squared. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. X cubed divided by x squared is x to the first. Negative 25 over 5 is negative 5. Again, the x's cancel out. On the right side, common number in 4 and 10. So 2 is in both of them. There are not x's in both, so I can't put that out front. So I'm going to divide just by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. X stays the same. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. These match. So always double check that. They should match. If they don't, then you divided wrong or took the wrong greatest common factor out. Something's wrong if they don't match. So I'm going to write it the other way this time, just so you can see it doesn't matter. Those 2 go in one set of parentheses, and then this one that matches goes in the other. We're only writing it one time. Okay, we've got one more, number 6. So draw a line down the middle. Greatest common factor. So 2 goes in both 4 and 20, but we're looking for the greatest. 4 goes into both of them, so I need to use the biggest number that goes into both. X's would be x squared, because I can take 2 from here and 2 from there. Divide by 4x squared. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. X cubed over x squared is x to the first. Negative 20 over 4 is negative 5. And then again, the x's cancel out.